What's going on, Mason? What's going on, George Mason University? What's up, George Mason University? What's going on, George Mason University? We're back. Double ball!
Vandie Bernard.
I'm Perry Buckley.
Lindsay Hokinson.
And I'm DeMonte Shaw.
Hello, once again, George Mason University. Welcome back into the Pressbox. And with us today, we have Mr. Charley Casserly. Of course, we had him on last year, and he's blessed us with his presence again to come and take his time out of his day to interview with us here on the Pressbox. Thank you, Mr. Casserly, for coming on once again. Thank you. And of course, this time of year for football fans is free agency period and draft time, and teams looking forward to, or fans looking forward to what their teams are going to do in the upcoming draft now in May. And first, I just wanted to get your take on, of course, the Houston Texans have the #1 pick this year, and Bill O'Brien, new coach coming in. What do you think they should do in terms of their direct? Do you think they should draft a quarterback? If so, whom? Or do you think they should go in a different direction altogether?
Well, there's really not a quarterback worthy of the first pick in the draft this year. They desperately have a need a quarterback. They signed Fitzpatrick, which gives them, a backup quarterback to go with it. So the best prospect is probably Bortles. Bridgewater might be more ready to play. Manziel I wouldn't consider with the first pick at all. Too undisciplined in watching him. Clowney is an excellent talent, but you've got to find out how committed he is there.
Right.
So a couple of other guys. There's Robinson from Auburn, who's the best tackle. Mack, who's the best outside linebacker, pass rusher, and they're playing the 34 defense. So those are the guys they have to look at. From television, without going to interview these guys and work them out, it's hard to differentiate between them. But if he picks a quarterback, I think Bortles would be the guy he would pick.
Okay.
And how much does that factor in when you actually meet a player and get to talk to him, get to know their personality a little bit? How much does that factor in when it comes to draft day?
Well, it's part of the process. How they play on film and tape is the single most important thing. But getting an idea of their personality, their commitment, in a workout, you can kind of test them, see how competitive they are, and then getting a chance to view them in drills and how they operate athletically. Again, you're fine-tuning it at this point. You've got it down to maybe your 4 guys. It's not like you're starting from scratch here. Mm-hmm. But I do think with Bortles, it's a question of his desire to play, his work habits, his instincts, his competitiveness. So you got to get that resolved. With Robinson, hey, he could be Orlando Pace in 2 or 3 years. He's not there yet, but he could be a great talent. Mack played the game of his career against Ohio State, but in other games didn't play quite as well. So what getting that solved there. Bortles is a guy that big guy, good athlete, good enough arm. Has some inconsistency every now and then. Some people think he's Roethlisberger. I think Roethlisberger probably was more accurate at the same point in time. Okay. So Gil Brandt of NFL.com said there were 9 guys worthy of the first pick. I think there's 9 guys, but I don't know if any of them are worthy of the true first pick. But somebody's going to have to go first.
Okay, that's definitely true. And I think, do you think that, so in this case, Bill O'Brien or Houston, do you think they feel pressure because the fan base wants instant energy? They last year was, needless to say, a disappointing year for the Houston franchise. And the fans are looking for a flashy pick. They want to get back to the top. I think most fans want quarterback. Does that put pressure on the coaching staff to appease the fans to go with a quarterback as opposed to maybe going for Clowney or in another direction?
Well, it shouldn't, because if you listen to the fans, you'll be sitting there with the fans. Okay, you heard that line before. And you can't do that. I don't think O'Brien would be influenced by that. I know the owner won't, because when I was there, we went through the Mario Williams decision, and there was far more pressure than they're feeling right now to take anybody but Mario Williams. So I don't think that usually happens. And the other thing is, even though you're aware of the voice of the fans, you really don't hear it because you're too busy working. Mm-hmm. So you hear about it a little bit, but not maybe 1%, to be honest with you, because you don't have time to listen to that.
Right.
You're too busy working.
That's true. That's true. So let's shift from Houston to a few other teams that are in need of a quarterback in top of the draft. Specifically, a team such as Cleveland, Oakland, or Jacksonville. they also are in desperate need of, or just help in general, more so than just the quarterback position. But let's take a team like Cleveland, new coach coming in, almost a new regime in a sense. What direction do you think they should go in?
Well, my sense is they're not going to take a quarterback at number 4. Ray Farmer is the general manager, his first draft. I believe he's going to want to take the best player available. So I think that could be, once again, Robinson from Auburn, the offensive tackle,
Right.
is a possibility there. I think the guy they want is Sammy Watkins from Clemson, the wide receiver. So I think it'd be Watkins, Robinson. If both are gone, then I think their fullback would be Jake Matthews of A&M. I don't think they'll take a defensive player there.
Okay. And in Oakland's case, they just recently traded for Matt Schaub. They for a 6th-rounder. Do you think that he's the guy they want to go with into the season temporarily? Maybe is this a sign that they are not necessarily looking at a quarterback in this year's draft, or do you still think they take a quarterback that high with their pick?
I'm not sure they will now. It's a good question. I'm not sure what the answer is at this point. They may not know the answer because they don't have to know it yet. They've got
Still got some time.
Yeah, they've got almost 2 months to
Right.
work it out. Schaub takes the pressure off. I think Schaub, what it seems to me what they're trying to do here in this offseason is go win some games this year, okay, and not sacrifice long-term cap issues. And I think they've been able to accomplish getting a better team, not killing themselves in the cap going forward, and then still try to get the quality young guys out of the draft, which ultimately that's how they're going to build a winning football team.
Mm-hmm. So you discussed a little bit how Houston doesn't necessarily going to take a quarterback at first overall because there isn't a quarterback that good to take first overall.
Mm-hmm.
But how does a team weigh taking the best overall player and trading down and trying to get the player they want, possibly a quarterback or a different position?
Well, certainly that's a good strategy because if you trade down, you're going to pick up a draft choice or draft choices. What you have to do is decide, first of all, where can you trade to? Who's willing to trade? And then what players are going to be available at that point in time? And if you're trading in the top 10 at the beginning of the draft, you have a pretty good idea for a long period of time before the draft, at least if you're going from 4 to 10, you know who's your 10th guy. So you know that's the worst case scenario. Once you get into the draft, the board thins out, and you don't have as much time to think about it. You got to do it on the clock, and you only have less than a minute sometimes to make that decision. And then it's an educated guess on your part of looking at the board. How many more names are on the board? How many guys do I think will be going before I take that pick? And that's what you have to weigh at that point in time. Usually, you do it when there's either there's nobody you're excited about, or the draft is so deep in the next couple of 5 to 10 picks that you feel confident you're going to get a good player and pick up draft choices too.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this year's draft, would you say there's a lack of talent or real comparable players in a certain position, and do you think that there's a position that is real deep in this draft that even in later rounds a team could still pick up a really good player at that position?
Yeah, I think that the best positions in this draft are the offensive line, excluding center, guard, and tackle, and wide receiver. Those are the deepest positions in the draft.
Okay, and so let's shift over to some other offseason news. Of course, we have plenty of news that goes on in the offseason in the NFL, and I think as football fans, we all love that. It seems like the season never ends, and let's talk about rule changes in specific, in more specific case, the recent talk of the extra point either being moved back or taken out the game completely. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think that's going to pass this year or even coming up in the next couple of years?
Well, I was on the competition committee for a long time, and we actually voted one time to eliminate the extra point. Okay, but keep the 2-point conversion. In other words, automatic 1 or go for 2. Okay, and we had this meeting, and we'd meet like for 8 days. So one afternoon, somehow we got on this subject, voted to eliminate it, which was totally out of left field because it wasn't on the agenda. But it had to be then approved by the club. See, so we just make a recommendation, and the chairman calls back to the office and comes back and says, "Well, scratch that idea. That one didn't fly." So I guess it's flying now. So I would stay with my vote then. Let's make the 1 automatic and 2 optional. I don't believe in moving back to getting up with a 42-yard extra point. Here's the problem you have that. It's not competitively fair. You're sitting there in January, late December, and you're in Chicago, and you got to go kick your extra point to win the game or tie the game at 42 yards. Detroit, on the same day, is in a dome, and they got to make the same kick. Well, it counts the same as points, but it's entirely two different situations. So I don't think it's competitively fair with the weather to be able to pass this idea of a 42-yard extra point. I would be against it.
That's a definitely good point you made.
Speaking of the weather, what is your opinion on the the Super Bowl being outside in New York, New Jersey this year, and then possible plans to bring it to Philly or other cold weather cities?
I think this was a one-time deal, and it was done to help the Giants and the Jets get a stadium built. I don't see it happening again, at least in my opinion. Remember this, everything went great on Sunday, and Monday was a disaster, okay?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Monday could have been Sunday now. That would have
Yeah.
been very easy.
Yeah.
So I'm not in favor of it. I think it ought to be played in warm weather, ideal playing conditions, so that the weather does not become a factor in who wins the championship.
Absolutely. And so there's one other rule change I just wanted to bring up real quick, or potential that they're thinking about. Of course, the kickoff was, over recent years, moved to the 35-yard line. Potentially they're thinking about moving it to the 40-yard line. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the NFL wants to get rid of kickoffs in general?
Well, I think if you wanted to get rid of them, you could. Okay, you pass a rule. If you're going to kick onside, you line up. If you're not going to kick onside, you don't line up, and you just put the ball in play at the 20 or 25-yard line or 30. It's been proven that there's more concussions on kickoffs than the other single play. By reducing the number of kickoffs returned, they've reduced concussions, so they've accomplished their objective there. I think I would leave it where it is, and I wouldn't change it. If we wanted to eliminate the returns, let's eliminate the returns.
And so let's talk about some other off-season news now. Of course, with free agency period still underway. Who do you think? What team stood out to you that really made an impact, either good or bad, that really either helped themselves, improved themselves going into next season? And what teams do you think maybe took a step back and maybe spent money on the wrong players?
Well, New England, I think, helped themselves quite a bit in getting Revis and Browner. Not only Revis, but it's getting Browner too. I mean, Revis basically replaces Talib. Talib had an excellent season for him. Revis will have to have a season that's better than that to get better. But Browner's a big upgrade for what they're working with. Now, I know he misses the first 4 games of suspension, but he played 16 games, so that means he's eligible for 12 plus playoffs. What New England can now do is they can go ahead and decide to put Revis on the number 1 receiver and let him move around. Keep Revis on and put Browner on the number 2 receiver. But basically, if they wanted to press, which I'm sure that's what they'll do, because that's what these guys can do, they can take out your top 2 receivers. When you do that, it gives you a lot of options on blitzing and changing coverages in the secondary. So it's added a lot of flexibility to what they can do, and I think that's a positive one.
Okay. And were there any teams that you feel didn't really help themselves, or maybe could have done more in free agency, that should have done more in free agency, but didn't do so, or teams that maybe made some questionable signings?
Well, Oakland lets Valdir go and Lamar Houston go, and those are 2 good young players who were snapped up pretty fast in free agency. So their inability to keep them, I think, hurts them.
Okay, and let's talk about why is it so hard for teams now to repeat as champions? Of course, the last team to do so was New England almost a decade or so ago. Yeah. Of course, teams recently haven't been able to repeat it. Not even that. Some teams the next year haven't even been able to make the playoffs.
Right.
So what do you think is the cause of that? Why is it so hard for teams to repeat as champions or even make it back to the postseason?
Well, I think you have 2 factors, mainly. Number 1, you have a salary cap and a free agency. So teams don't stay the same. And a lot of times you'll get up against the cap, so you can't get better. And if you're a championship team, you can't get better, and you're going to lose some players. That means other people are getting better. So the system is set up for not having long sustained success. I think it's accomplished that. Plus all the inner factors of repeating, overconfidence, luck is involved. Everybody's shooting for you the next year. The schedule's going to be more demanding. And there's a fine line between winning and losing, as it is. So, I mean, Seattle certainly deserved to win the championship, but they had a fight with San Francisco. I mean, that wasn't a gimme game right there.
Right.
So I think it's all those factors: the system and just the nature of the fact that you win and it's hard to win, and indicates it, or to me indicates it's hard to repeat.
Going back a little bit to the rule change, you see basically they want to shift from hitting high, defenders from hitting high, and now you see them hitting receivers low, or tight ends low, and you see torn ACLs or broken legs and whatnot. What is your opinion on what they're trying to do? Obviously, they're trying to prevent concussions and major head injuries, but now you see these lower body injuries. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I agree with what they're doing with the head. I'm surprised we haven't seen more people go low than we have. I thought that was an obvious strategic move by the defense when this happened, and we've rarely seen it, so teams aren't using it. So I think that's I don't have an answer. I think it's positive to work on getting the head out of the game as much as you can. I don't have an answer as far as going low, because I don't think you can take it out, because what do you do with the undersized DB who's tackling the big back? What's he going to do? Hit him high and kill them? Okay, not literally, but we know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got to go low. So I don't think he can legislate it out of the game. At least I don't know a way to do it right now.
And I want to go back to the Super Bowl for a quick second. From the start of the game, Seattle just set the tone, and they had Denver flustered for the most part. What do you think was the cause of that? Of course, Seattle's defense was just spectacular this year. Do you think it was just all Seattle, or do you think it was a little bit of Seattle and maybe Denver not being, I don't want to say not prepared because they had 2 weeks still, but I guess in a sense not ready to take on Seattle and Seattle's defense and not expecting what happened in the Super Bowl?
Well, I think one of the things that hit me is that Denver wasn't going to be balanced. They were going to throw the ball first, okay, and that's always dangerous if you can't run the ball. They put a lot on Peyton Manning's shoulders. When a team has more than 1 week to prepare, that becomes now an advantage for them, because Peyton is complex. He's hard to get ready for in a week, but in 2 weeks, you can come up with multiple game plans. You can do a lot of different things there to confuse him and make him hold the ball and let your sacks come. So I think that was an advantage for Seattle going into this game. They had 2 weeks to prepare, and I think they used it, with their defense. So I think that was a big factor for them.
And do you think, based on the Super Bowl, of course there are talks about Peyton's legacy, him needing that game, the second ring. Do you think that game took any hit to his legacy? I mean, with all the records that he has at the quarterback position and the records that he's going to continue to gain over the next few years before he retires, do you think at all that game had a damaging impact on his legacy?
No, I don't think so. I mean, his legacy is so strong on what he's done in the regular season. He has won a Super Bowl. Basically, when you have him on your team, he lifts the team up above the level and brings everybody with him. So I think people see that, and I don't think objective people are not going to sit there and say this hurts his legacy.
Right.
I don't think.
Right. Agreed. And so I know it's a long time away from next year's Super Bowl, but of course we always love our predictions. Who do you think are the favorites going into next year? Do you think there's a team that maybe might take people by surprise next year or reestablish themselves as a contender? Do you see a team that were strong this year maybe falling off at all?
Well, I think until we get through the draft, we're not going to know what the true picture is. I think Seattle's certainly is going to be strong. San Francisco needs work on the secondary. That's kind of a little bit of a negative for them. I think Arizona's the dark horse in that league. If they can get that offensive line straightened out, they've got a top 10 defense. And Carson Palmer played well at the end of last year, so they keep that going. They beat Seattle in Seattle, the only team to do that in the last 2 years. So I think they're my sleeper, if you will, as a team to compete for it. And I think Baltimore will bounce back and be competitive in the AFC.
Okay. And last question before we let you go. Of course, when you're not teaching here, we can see you sometimes on NFL Network and giving your analysis as well. So how is it like just working with the NFL Network crew, some of the guys such as Rich Eisen and Deion Sanders and just Mike Mayock. How's it working there and just working with them, being able to, I guess, how long do you guys usually prepare before a segment or before you talk about a certain topic on the air?
Well, everybody's great. They're all great personalities. It's a great organization to work with, so I'm very happy with them, and they've been good to me. You'll prepare depending upon what you have to do. I mean, some segments are longer than others, and some are more complex. But there is quite a bit of preparation to go into it. Part of it is I'm looking at tape every day, and that helps me, stay up with things and get a feel on things, because you're seeing what's really happening as opposed to television. You can't see everything. See. So there is a lot of preparation involved.
All right, and once again, Mr. Casserly, I want to thank you for stopping by and
Okay.
taking the time out to just give us some insight and some analysis into the NFL and things that go on. We appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by once again.
We're here with you now.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, George Mason University, for joining us. Once again, I'm Vandie Bernard,
I'm Perry Buckley.
and we'll see you next time inside the Press Box.